Compliments of a season. Welcome to today's episode of Relationship and Life. We've been talking about applying the 9 pillars of effective relationship. Upper week, we spoke about the pillars of effective relationship. We explained them, tried to help us understand these pillars, the 9 of them. But this week, we'll be talking about how to practically apply them in our situation, in our lives, and our relationships. Now, we listed the 9 pillars of relationship, and in the last few episodes, I spoke about how you can look at it as a tree, and that a tree has 3 parts: the roots, the trunk, and the fruits. The 3 parts: the roots, the trunk, and the fruits. And that if you apply it that way, every time you see a relationship, think about the roots, think about the trunk, and think about the fruits. Now, at the root point, I said that the 3 pillars that form the roots is the pillar of purpose, the pillar of identity, and the pillar of rules. At the root, we have purpose, identity, and rules. And we'll look at those ones first, the 3 pillars at the root that form the roots of any effective relationship. That is, any relationship that's going to go far, we need to first understand before we go in those relationships. Now, there's a story of Ruth in the Bible. Ruth was the daughter-in-law of a lady called Naomi. Ruth and her mate called Orpah. Naomi had left Bethlehem, she had left Israel to go to Moab because of economic reasons. There was trouble there, so herself and her husband and her 2 sons migrated to Moab. When they got to Moab, the 2 sons got married. One married Ruth, and the other one married Orpah. While she was there, her husband died. A couple of years later, the 2 sons died too, so she was left with herself and her 2 daughter-in-laws. So after a while, she heard that things were getting better economically in Bethlehem, and she was making her way back to Bethlehem. As she was going, the 2 daughters said, "Listen, your mother-in-law, we are going with you." And Ruth said, "Listen," Naomi said, "don't go with me. There is nothing I can do for you again. Things have been very, very bad for me. Please go back to your people." It's very interesting that Ruth decided to follow her. And the reason is this. If you look at Naomi, at this stage, Naomi had no strategic benefit to her. In fact, if you want to look critically and people want to be very, very superstitious or something, Naomi will look like a problematic person. Why? You travel with your husband and 2 kids, your husband died, your 2 sons died. They would have said, "Are you sure this is not a strange woman? Are you sure there's nothing queer about this one? That's everybody died. They will say she killed her husband, she killed her son-in-law again." So on a normal day, Naomi was somebody that people should want to distance themselves from. But Ruth and Orpah said they were going with her, and Ruth particularly. Now, at some point, Orpah went back because Naomi was very, very blunt with them. Naomi said, "Listen, I'm going back to my hometown. I can't offer you anything again. I'm old, I'm not going to get married again, and even if I choose to remarry, I have a son today, will you wait for the sons to grow up and marry them?" He said, "My daughters, there is nothing in me for you again." By the time Orpah and Naomi heard this, they knew that this was a reality test. And Orpah said, "Listen, it's true. There's nothing this woman can do for me again. My relationship with her as a mother-in-law is finished. My husband is dead, so there's nothing she can offer me." But Ruth persisted. And the question is this: why did Ruth persist in a relationship with a woman whose husband was dead and who was her mother-in-law and her own husband too was dead? There was really nothing, so to say, that Ruth could have really benefited from her. That's the way it looks. But the issue is this: there's something that Ruth had done that wasn't obvious. You might not see it clearly when you read the Bible, and the story is in Ruth chapter 1 from verse 2. That the relationship between Ruth and Orpah and their mother-in-law Naomi was a simple daughter-in-law, mother-in-law relationship. Or at least that's how it started. They came to Naomi and she became their mother-in-law. At some point, their husband died and that was it. But somewhere in there, for Ruth, Naomi had gone beyond a mother-in-law. Naomi had stopped just being her mother-in-law. Naomi had become her guide. Naomi had become her confidant. Naomi had become her mentor. So even though her relationship with Naomi in terms of mother-in-law, daughter-in-law was over because she had no son again, the relationship as a mentor was still intact, and that purpose secured their relationship. You see, purpose is the most powerful thing when it comes to building relationship. It makes all the difference. The reason Ruth could go on when Naomi stopped was because for Naomi, the purpose was over. The purpose that you were my mother-in-law and it was over, there was nothing else we could do. But for Ruth, it was much more than that. We'll take a break now and we're back after the break. Please don't go away.
Experience God's life, light, and love as you join our church family this Sunday at the Helper's House. Venue, Kwoti Event Center, 171 Bagada Oworonshoki Expressway, beside EcoBank, opposite UPS, First Pedro Bus Stop, Bagada, Lagos. Time, 9:30 a.m.
The decision on whom to marry is perhaps one of the most important decisions that you can make in life. Unlike any other decision you make in life, the decision on whom to marry has a far-reaching direct impact on your life. Sadly and unfortunately, most people fail to prepare adequately for this all too important life decision. In this book, Before You Say I Do, by Adeniyi Adekunle, you will find points to consider before proceeding to the marriage altar and down-to-earth practical questions to ask yourself before saying, I do.
Welcome back. We are talking about applying the principle of purpose to our relationship. We're talking about the 9 pillars of relationship. We're looking at how to practically apply them. We're looking at the root of purpose now. And we spoke about the fact that for Orpah and Ruth, the relationship with Naomi started out as daughter-in-law, mother-in-law relationship. That's the way it started. That was the purpose of their relationship. It was just Naomi was their mother-in-law, Orpah was the daughter-in-law, Ruth was the daughter-in-law. So when they said, emotional time, we'll follow you, I'm going back to hometown, I'll follow you, stay with you. But Naomi said, listen, girls, no husband for you because I'm not getting married. And even if I decide to get married again, you're my daughter-in-laws. I can't have, even if I have a son today, I have 2 sons today, will you wait all your life for them to grow up and marry them? He said, listen, let's be realistic, let's be practical. It's not going to happen. So if this is the case, what are you following me for? And Orpah said, yes, your purpose in my life as a mother-in-law is over, so I'm going back to my people. And it was okay. But Ruth said to Naomi, I'm not going anywhere. In fact, let's read Ruth chapter 1. I'll start reading from verse 12. Ruth chapter 1 from verse 12. Read 12 to 15. Ruth chapter 1 from verse 12 to 15. Naomi said this, turn again, my daughters, go, for I'm too old to have a husband. If I say I had hope, I'll have a husband tonight and should bear sons. Would you wait until they grow up? Will you shut yourself up and have no husband? No, my daughters, for it makes me very sad for your sake that the hand of God has gone out against me. Verse 14. And they lifted up their voices and they wept. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. And she said, behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said no. Why did Ruth stay? Because for somewhere in their relationship, Ruth's relationship with Naomi had moved from that of a mere mother-in-law into a mentor, into a guide, into a confidant. So as a mother-in-law, she might not have been able to do much for her. But because she needed a guide, a mentor, and advisor all her life, she said, listen, even though the purpose of mother-in-law is over, that of mentor, that of guide, that of confidant, that of advisor continues. So the question I have for you is this. How do you define the purpose of a relationship? Someone could be your boss. And if it's only your boss, you can leave at any time. Someone could be a spouse, your husband. And if it's your husband, there's a way you could relate. But if there are other things to it, if you see the person as your teacher, as this and that, so there are a lot of things you can get from the relationship. A lot of us get stuck in relationship because we do not know that relationships are fluid in nature. That relationship can start as one thing and grow to something else entirely. You could be friends. And like maybe a guy and a lady, they are just friends, and they start out as friends. They moved from friends to fiance and fiancé. From there, they moved to husband and wife. Now, at each stage, what value comes out of that relationship is completely different. You can meet your friend at some point and leave, but it's not that easy to do that with a fiance or a fiancé. And as you move it up to husband and wife, it becomes, more demanding relationship. So for Naomi, she was not just Ruth's mother-in-law. She was her mentor. And for Ruth, I need you for the rest of my life. Go all the way through. Like I said again, how do you value the purpose? How do you rate the purpose of relationship in your life? How do you deal with people? If you have not clarified purpose, you will not be able to maximize the value in it. The moment the purpose as mother-in-law was gone for Orpah, there was no value for her again. But for Ruth, there was still value, not as a mother-in-law, or not just as a mother-in-law now, but much more as a mentor. When you are able to sort that out, you can get much more values from the relationship you are involved in. And that is a major key in building effective relationship. It's something you must apply and continue applying in your life. We'll stop here for today and we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. Have a very, very wonderful day.
I'm back, bigger and better. In a world full of pressures on all sides, many people experience some form of setback at some point or the other in life. While some setbacks can easily be overcome, many others can knock the best of men out of the game of life and bring them to a place where they never have the courage to get back up and fulfill their dreams and aspirations. In this book, I'm Bigger and Better by Adeniyi Adekunle, learn scriptural strategies that will help you turn setbacks into comebacks, help you rise every time you fall, and help you fulfill your dreams and aspirations.